Welcome back, everybody. Got a fun, exciting tutorial for you, or a breakdown video for you. As you can see, my recent video that I posted on YouTube, time-lapse of creating a helmet for this guy here. We'll be using the new version of Zbrush, which is 2021.6.2. That's the latest update. And I'm going to show you all the tips and tricks on how I went about creating all the pieces for this helmet. And we're just going to have a good time here. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into ZBrush. As you can see here, I've got them all loaded up in ZBrush. I've got all the history and everything in here so we can go back in time and see how I worked on this guy. It's taking advantage of some of the new feature sets in this version, including most definitely the new mesh project feature, which basically projects just a mesh using a mask straight off of any underlying geometry. So it's kind of new, but it's kind of using some of the older technology too, but it's far quicker, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how I went about using it. So let's go ahead and open up. Let's find, okay, the helmet base here. This is basically what I use to generate most of the shapes. So if you look at it, this is basically where it's at right now. I actually generated some of the shapes further back in time. Let's see. Yeah, right about there. So I'm going to go ahead and just going to copy him. And we are going to just paste them in a new scene here, a new project here. And we'll go ahead and just delete, nope, paste, delete other, always. Okay, so now I have just the base mesh of where I want to project all my pieces here. So basically it's whatever is visible on the screen, it will project to. Okay, so let's go ahead and do Mesh Project, which you can find in your toolbar here, or in your brush palette here. And see, go down here to Mask. Oh, nope, it's up here, Mesh Project. Okay. So here's all the new ones: Mesh Balloon, Extrude Prop Depth, Mesh Project, Mesh Splat. There's a lot of different functionalities here, but we're going to concentrate on Mesh Project today. Okay, it'll give you this note when you first do this. So we're just going to skip, and we'll just go with the standard operating procedure here. Okay, if you hold down Control, you can create just a freeform mask. Boom, there you go. Now you have extra pieces added to your geometry, and it sticks to it, okay? But you can also go about it like this. If you actually turn on Live Boolean, it will do a couple other tricks and nuances here. So if I do Control and I draw out another mask here, it doesn't have to be fancy or anything. Okay, it still sticks to it, right? So we haven't done anything new or special. Control Z. So now, when I do it this time, I will hold down Shift and then let go. And as you can see, it dropped in a new mesh over here. It gave it its own subtool, so which comes in very handy. So say like, because if I have Live Boolean off, and I try to project, watch what happens. Okay, see how it's conforming to the previous tool I did? So Control Z that. But if I turn Live Boolean on and I keep all the same settings, watch what happens. It makes it makes a perfect projection with itself, if that makes any sense, which is kind of a neat trick there. So if I remove the mask, it looks like just one piece of geometry, but when in fact it's actually a couple different shells of geometry. But the way it does it is just fantastic. So let's look at some more controls over this mesh project here. Okay, so and the way you get to it is just by holding down the control button, and that's how you get all your options here. Okay, so if you look at Z intensity, we could drop it down, say like 50. We'll draw out a new mesh here. Okay, now it made it only 50%, or 50. Yeah, Z intensity is 50. But see if I do it again, boom, it makes it 50 exactly. Okay, so this is kind of the start of how I came up with it here. But we still have more controls that we can look at here. So let me go ahead and clear some of this out here so we have a little more room to work with. So there's more options to this. So if you load up, let's go to brush and mask mesh modifiers, you'll see a new option there. So brush, now you won't have access to it till you hit control. Okay, so control is always the key factor here. So you got resolution 128, the default always seems to be perfect. Okay, smoothness helps out on the jagginess of its projection and all that, and that does come in quite handy. But there's some negative side effects to it too. Same thing with the bevel. It gives you that nice beveled edge there. So if you pull up wireframe, you can see what it's doing. It's put in a nice little bevel here. And if I hit solo, you can see that it actually projects inside the mesh. So this is great for Boolean operations. So let's go ahead and solo back out there. And then, so the bevel will change how much bevel there is. If you take it all the way down to 0, it won't put a bevel. So as you can see, no bevel. So we got those options there, and if you look at my UI, I actually put it in my UI, and you can pick that up over on Gumroad and make it quick and easy, and then a couple of the new brushes here you can play with. Okay, let's go on to some more options in here. There's a ton of options. So let's go ahead and Control Z, get back to our base here. Alright, so holding down Control, we can come up here to the stroke menu. And we've got a couple other ones that we can play with in here. You can go to Rectangle and draw out perfect little rectangles. Boom. See, there you go. Now, on that note, if you notice that rectangle has these rounded corners here. Well, that's because of your smoothness of this particular brush. So if we drop this down, I'm just going to zero it out so we can see what happens here. Let's draw another rectangle. Okay, now you can see my borders are nice and tight, which is great for perfect squares that don't take up the whole mesh. But say like, let's do ZZ. Let's go ahead and just delete this. Go ahead and we'll go back to, so now we hold down Control again and we go to circle. Now I'm going to draw this out and hold down Shift so we can make our separate subtool. Now you see what happens here when you have that smoothness all the way down? Because it's trying to make those curves, it comes out super jaggy. So that's where smoothness comes in. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's like, do you want real smooth meshes or do you want real precise sharp corners? And you almost, yeah, it's kind of a struggle there. Hopefully they'll improve with that over time. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back to 25. Yeah, 25 is the default. Now if we drag him out again, boom, nice and smooth. So, you know, you'll have to play with the options just a little bit to find your liking. You know, if you're okay with those little curved corners, rounded over corners, then go for it. You're fine. But if you really want that precision, you know, take that smoothness down, take that bevel down, because that'll always play a factor on how rounded over the corners get too. So, you know, to each their own. Find the one that works for you. So let's go ahead and explore just a little bit more here. Hold down Control, and the other one that works with this is Curve. Okay, so if you hold down Control and then click and hold on the mesh, it puts out a nice curve, a curve line, a mask curve line. So we'll do double tap Alt, get your nice sharp corners, and then let go, and there you go. So now you can get your weird shapes that you want. You know, you can even do hold down Control again, and then you can let go of it, and then you can, if you just hit Alt once, it turns it into a nice sort of Bezier curve. Maybe someday they'll actually give us controls like a Bezier curve. That would be awesome. And let go. So you can do things like that. So one more aspect of this guy is hold down Control. You go back to rectangle or circle, whichever, but then you have the option of opening up alpha. So let's go ahead and go to our alpha menu. By hitting comma on the keyboard, it pulls up the light box here. And there's this one hard surface alphas down here that you can load up that comes shipped with ZBrush. So say like, just click and drag through here. You can find a part shape that you like. We'll just do this one. Actually, you have to hold down Control and then double click it, and then it'll add it to your alpha. So now if we do Control and drag it out, it drags out this nice little alpha. And then if you're, you know, like when you're doing the Control, holding down Control and hold on to your space bar, you can drag and move it around just like in other applications like Photoshop and all that. There you go. Cool, right? The only caveat is that drag rectangle is the only one that works. Drag rectangle will not work with curve with a mesh project, unfortunately. Because the nice benefit of drag rectangle is you can rotate the alpha while you're dragging it around, which is really cool. So you're kind of stuck at whatever angle you're looking at. So as we're just looking at it straight on, but you know, say like I want to get him angled, you know, like that, it's nearly, well, it's not impossible. I mean, I'll show you how to kind of compensate for that. Because if you go to your alpha menu, you know, open up modify, hold down Control to get access to that particular alpha. You know, you can always rotate it, flip it, and do all the other things. So you're still stuck at 90 degrees. So say like you want to get it to go diagonally down like this. Well, a little trick here is if you hit, not M, go up to your move, turn off the gizmo, you know, which is just Y. You know, you could turn it on and off, and get to the old transpose line. And if you do Control and you drag it out like this, and that's the angle you want to get at. And let me turn off symmetry for a second. Draw that out again, and then hit hold down Control and click that little white dot. Boom. See? Now it lines you up perfectly. So now you can go back to draw. Let's rotate him back like that. Now he's at the angle I want. And as you can see, boom, there you go. So neat little trick that you can use with transpose line. And we can just clear mask and mirror weld because it's all symmetrical, which works out. very weird looking little face we created. So, but that's not what you're here for. You're looking at all the pieces and all that I did with the helmet. Well, you're probably already getting the idea of how I went about it. So let's go ahead and delete this. And let's find a alpha to help us out here. So let's go back to our menu here. Let's find some alphas that might work for us. So what about thinking, sorry. This one looks kind of cool. We'll play with this one. There we go. Now we got to load it up. Comma to close that up there. And I'm going to draw on the left side here, so I'm going to flip him over. And I'm going to decrease the intensity down to about we'll just go to 20. Okay, I like to keep it in like 5 or 10 increments, so this way I know it's like, okay, which level was I at when I drew this one out. So that'll come in handy a little bit later. So we're going to draw all these out in the 20 Z intensity. So let's go ahead and drag out, and I'm kind of keeping them off the center line a little bit there. Okay, cool. So let's draw another one. And what I like to do is turn on polyfill and then turn off the line. And now let's draw out another one here. Maybe offset it just a little bit. Oops, Control Z. Let's do that from the beginning. We didn't do it right. We have to hold down Shift, get us a new one there, and we got live boolean on, so we're set to go. Now we can draw the way we want it to. This way everything will be at the same level. And then change your angle that you're going at every once in a while, because I'll show you something here in a second. So that's basically what I did to get that center piece of his helmet to go, and I just went all the way around, and then I went to the back and I did it down the back. And then let's go ahead and get the center ones in. I'm going to turn off symmetry for a second, hit X, and let's just pull up an alpha real quick. And we'll just do this one here. Alright, got them loaded, and got a rough idea where the symmetry line is here. Okay, and if you go back to your stroke and you turn off square, now look at that. Now you can change the shape of it altogether. That. And notice when I go all the way to the edge here, I'm going to show you what happens. Okay, let's go up and look. It only projects like right to where that camera saw it. And that's it. That's as far as it'll go. So it won't wrap all the way around. So that's just something you want to think about here. So now we got our basic shape of the center part of our helmet. So go ahead, we'll turn symmetry back on, mirror and weld. Alright, now we got all our pieces laying at the same level here. So if we go to ZModeler, we're going to have to probably turn the line back on here to help us out. We're going to zoom in a bit so we can see everything a little bit better. As you can see, it makes a pretty dense mesh, and that's where that resolution comes in real handy. So I just keep it at the 128 default unless you think you need more resolution or less resolution. And the thing to note is when it's projecting, make sure you have a nice smooth thing it's projecting to. The helmet base is actually has dynamic subdivision on it, and turn it off. And so if I let me draw another one here and see if it works. Oops, got to be on the right one. Draw it again. Notice how it picks up the underlying topology and stuff like that. But because we have, go up here, turn dynamic on, it's calculating all that dynamic when it does the projection. And I'm still in the wrong one. And here you go. See? Nice and smooth. Instead of faceted like it is here. So just remember what you're projecting to underneath. Make sure it's smooth. Either that or you're going to get this, and it's going to be hard to get that faceted look out of it, because it's really not faceted, it's just projected like that. So if you turn that on, you can see all the geo that's already in there. So it's going to be kind of hard to smooth it out. Alright, so back to making our panels here, and we want to make them raised different than the other ones next to it. So we're going to change our points to do nothing. Let's get on the edge. Do nothing. Now let's get on to just a poly, and we will tell it to move. Extrude kind of works sometimes it doesn't work that well. So, and we're just going to do polygroup island. Okay, and then all you got to do is find that poly. Oh, everything's masked. Unmask it. There we go. Maybe. Well, it does work. And then it doesn't. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and just do extrude. I swear it's worked before. What am I doing wrong, guys? Let's get the draw size down here. And see, it starts grabbing things it's not supposed to grab. Let's go back to the move. Alright, zoom in. There it goes. It'll take a little finagle in there, but eventually you'll get it to work correctly here. So I got that one. Let's see how well it works now. There it goes. That's a little better. It's a little finicky there on what it's actually grabbing. And this is how I got that paneled effect. Alright. And then we'll take one of these in the center here. There we go. Boom. And as you can see, that's basically how I got those panels to go across the back of his head, or top of his head. You know what I mean. So what else to talk about here? So let's start moving into the detail work. So what I like to do is get your base shapes down and then go back and do all the detail. And that's probably a good practice for everybody to do. You know, get your main forms down and then go back and then detail. Okay? Alright, so we're going to do the detail now. Alright, so a couple tricks to this here. So let's go ahead and load up some stamps that we can put onto our mesh. Okay, so if you guys download my hard surface stuff off of the Gumroad which I have for free. I'll probably make a paid version eventually, but here's some low quality stuff here of a bunch of little stamps that I made up just for doing this type of work. So let's go ahead, and I got a bunch of these nice little scribe lines in here, so we're just gonna preload a couple of them in here so we have some to play with. Let's see, I got a couple more here. And we'll even put one of these fancy ones in here. Alright, cool. So, and I installed it in the alpha folder inside Zbrush, so this way it's quick and easy for me to find. So, like I said, you can go to Gumroad, download it for free. You're welcome. So, we got our symmetry back on here. And let me get off of ZModeler here. And oh, let's cut that, stop that. There we go. Alright, so hold down Control. Let's pick one of these scribe lines here. Just one to get us going. Oops. See, don't have to click it twice. Silly. Alright. Let's zoom in here. And if you've, when you start working with this, you'll start noticing that if you zoom in closer, you get better resolution. So just FYI, the larger you can make your mask, the better quality mesh that'll be made for it. So let's go ahead and do the scribe line here. And I'm going to turn, yeah, we'll leave the square off so we can adjust the size here. And let me Control Z that. I want like, I'm going to bring it down to 10. Okay. And this time when we do it, so I'm going to get us started with a new mesh here. Kind of get it close to where I want, and then hold down Alt this time. You see how it changes white? Hold it down, let go, and boom, it's made a negative mesh in the Boolean system. So now we're on that one there, we could just start going ahead and create Inscribe Lines. But I want to show you a little trick here. So say like I want to have a scribe line here, but I only want it to affect a certain mesh. Okay, otherwise if I do it right here, it'll project through all the meshes, or everything that's on screen, everything that's visible. So if we solo this, you can see what it did. It took like a downward spiral to get to that next level there. So let's go ahead and Control Z that. And if we go back to our panels here, just by themselves and solo, if I do Control Shift and click, let me get to select rectangle here, click that, and then hit Control Shift A, that'll expose just that. So if I turn off base, come out of solo, now I can make a scribe line just on this particular panel. And then if we go back up to the panels and then do Control Shift click outside it, there you go. The only thing you got to watch out for is it creates a little tunnel underneath your other one there. So if you're trying to bake this mesh, you might run into errors at the corner there. So you might want to just keep that in mind when you're doing it. But this is basically how I went about this on all this detail up here. You can see how some dart under it. You know, I just went around and I isolated all those meshes that I wanted to affect. And if I didn't want it to affect anything else, that's all I did. You know, I just hid what I didn't want it to affect. And so it just created a negative mesh right there. So if you look at the scribe detail, solo it out, there it is. That's all there is to it. So going back, so that gives you a good idea on how I went about doing things, on hiding particular meshes just so I can make sure it didn't capture the data around it. Okay, so now a cool trick here is, you see this one here let's see here, boom. I have this kind of a sunburst effect here. I was struggling trying to figure out, well, how can I project it just to that one mesh right there without interference from everything else. But if I hit it, I wouldn't know exactly where to put it because I wanted it to line up with this circle here. So the way I went about it, well, for starters, you can actually create your own alphas inside ZBrush. So let me go here. I've actually got this little starburst right here. I thought it did. There it is. And it's just an array mesh that I put together. And then I went over to my alpha palette here, and then I hit from mesh. And now it'll create me an alpha on the fly. So you don't have to do any Photoshop or Illustrator or anything like that, like I did to begin with to make all the scribe lines. And you can generate your own alpha. So click OK. Boom. Now you got an alpha in your inventory. So just a useful tidbit there. And if you do from mesh again, you can change the resolution to whatever you want, up to 2K down to 2, which would do you no good. So we're just going to cancel out of that. We got the alpha we wanted. So let me go ahead. Let me take a look at him. I'm going to show you. Zoom in here. I'm going to turn him off. And I'm going to show you how I went about this here. Okay, so I've got my image. I've got my plan to project it off of just this one here. This is where I want it to project to and nowhere else. So how do I go about that? So let me go ahead and do brush alpha, load up that 3D alpha, and if you, let me zoom in just a little bit and make sure we got plenty of resolution here. I'm going to change my rectangle to square, and then okay, you see how I'm all nice and lined up there? So obviously we know what's going to happen here. If I hit shift, it'll create a new mesh, but yeah, blah blah blah. But the only problem there is it projected over everything. We don't want it to project over everything. So go ahead and come back up to here, solo, and I haven't moved the camera at all. All I have to do is hit 1. Boom. Now it created it perfectly in the exact same space, the exact same spot that you did before, except now it's only projecting over that one image. So I can get rid of that one and look at there. Projected it exactly where I wanted it. Now I may go in and obviously move things around and stuff like that. It's not quite as lined up as my previous attempt at this, but you can see that's a quick, easy trick to go ahead to redo your stroke. As long as you don't move the camera, that's most important. Do not move your camera. Just isolate the one you want to go back to and hit 1, and it'll project it right back on there. So let's go ahead. Let's see what other tips and tricks that I need to talk about here. Really not a whole lot. You kind of got all my secrets off of this one here. I did do a little more experimentation on isolating things. So let's go back to our lesser version of my helmet here. And we'll go ahead and turn the base back on. Well, no, we don't need the base on. Another trick you can do. So let's go ahead and isolate this one here. Control. No, I don't even want it. I want it just to be just the very top panels here. Okay. So you can see it's just the very top of it here. So let's go back to our negative mesh here. Let's pick our little circular alpha here, drag it out, and I'm intentionally going over the edge to show you this. Notice how it caps it right there at the before it hits the boundary. And so if I go back and reveal everything, and there you go. So where I ended up doing that at was just kind of an experimentation to see how it worked. Was I did it on the goggles, and if you notice right there, those hex patterns, which you can actually find that hex in the hard surface alphas that's supplied by Pixelogic, and it's just right here, and I just used it there. But if I isolated just that very particular edge there, that poly group there. Let me find the goggles. Here's goggles. Here's solo it. There, see? I just isolated that particular edge, or that particular poly group, and then I went ahead and did my hex pattern through there. Turn that off. What other caveat here can we talk about here? So yeah, I did the same sort of thing. This is where I first experimented with that particular trick, just isolated one poly group as opposed to all of them. And it made some very interesting effects, like this little, I did just the outer edges here, or the outer poly groups, and I ended up with like this little dot pattern. It was interesting, so I kept it. But let's see, what else? Oh, yes, the very interesting feature here, this little scribe line. Okay, that's part of this extrude profile 2, and there's 2 different versions of it. But this one is cool. Let's go to my makeshift guy here. I'm going to make a duplicate of him. Solo him. I want just this poly group here, and delete everything. Delete hidden. Okay. So now if you go to your stroke, you'll come down to curve functions and find frame mesh, border, poly group, creased edges, blah blah blah. Okay, and I've put that down in the new UI. So now if we just select border, because it's just one border, and hit frame mesh, we now have a nice little curve. So let's go to the extrude here, and we'll just do the Scribe 11, that's default. Take your draw size, maybe about 4 or 5 or 6, somewhere around there, and then click. Cool. We're just gonna go with that for now. I may actually make that smaller. And it's just basically a, just a souped up curve insert mesh, basically. So zoom in here, might be too small. Alright, we're gonna go with that 4.5. Okay, we're gonna just be happy with that. And we're gonna go ahead, clear the mask, select that, delete, hidden. I'm gonna turn on dynamic, solo it. So now we got this nice little sort of pattern or whatever on the outside of it, but we can always turn it into a negative. And I just need to delete that, and delete. There we go. And there you go. You can add some really nice detail on anything on your model quickly and easily with that, and it just adds a little bit of extra detail, just kind of free detail that you can play with. And I used it sparingly. Use it sparingly. Don't go crazy with it unless it really adds to the whole aesthetic of it. But that is basically it in a nutshell, guys, on how I went about this guy. Hopefully you guys learned something here. I enjoyed going through this process. It was very fun exploration, trying to figure out what other ways I can use this particular feature set here. There are a lot more newer features in 2021.6 that I didn't really touch on. But there's plenty of tutorials out there. If there's anything you think of that you need me to show you, give me a shout and I'll see what I could do to make a video for you. Once again, I hope you guys learned something, had fun, give you a bunch of creative ideas, and definitely show me what you've been doing. You know, if you're using any of my techniques, definitely give me a shout and tell me what you're doing. And we will catch you in the next video. You guys have been awesome. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time, okay?